We can just roll into this Annie app here.
Zelda app, aren't we? Oh no, we're not gonna. We're not. Wait. No, we're gonna Anna, right? Because we're gonna yell at each other about Zelda. Yeah. No, we keep the yelling to the second one. Yes. Well, we're probably gonna yell at each other in this Anna app too.
Yeah, it'll go both ways on both episodes. I bet.
There'll be more yelling in the Zelda app, so we'll save that to the second one.
Yeah, yes. Okay. And more potential. Like I just feel like there's more on that bone. But that's not true at all. There's plenty on both bones.
Both bones have meat.
I don't remember a single thing I talked about in the first anniversary episode, so this is all fresh to me.
Nice. So we got a new topic that Randall kind of threw into the mix too. So I got 3 kind of jotted down, and then if we feel like we need to roll on from there,
I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys want to recap on the topics or just roll into it?
Give it to me fresh on the floor. Fuck it. We'll do it live.
Fuck it. We'll do it live.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And we are back again to try our 4-year anniversary episode here. We're taking another stab at it.
Why are we doing it again?
We sat down to record one, and we got about, I'd say like 40, 45 minutes into the episode here, and that's why this episode's coming out maybe about a month after our actual 4-year anniversary here. But hey, we still got to celebrate. We had to wait for John to be able to sync up with us and stuff. But we got about 40, 45 minutes in, and then Randall was like, hey guys, my recording stopped at about 35 minutes in, and we were like, that's about the time that we like clapped, which is when we like kind of clapped to like sync up starting the episode. So like, I don't think we got any of that. So maybe there'll be some basketball talk. I feel like we I don't know, we talked about a few things before. We got 30 minutes of recording, so there might be some save it for the cast material there in the future. But we were a little bit not unprepared, but we were kind of doing a little bit more of a winging it approach for the anniversary edition. So it's like part of me is like, hey, we get what we for being a little less prepared, we get what we get. So.
I salvaged it by ruining it. So.
But hey, we got a little practice
we did drone on a lot. Like it honestly probably needed some editing. So maybe getting
this is like,
or maybe Randall was just like, oh god, I need to make sure that we don't release this episode.
He's like, guys, this is going off the rails here.
But
we got a few topics here that like it kind of helped us hone this in a little bit. We are going to keep it a little more freeform. In the past, we've kind of like picked a game that we've, kind of a game we want to champion that we haven't talked about yet on the podcast. But now it's like, okay, as the years go on, we talked about so many games. Well, let's just pick some topics that John kind of came up with this idea to a degree, kind of loosely, and just like, let's pick some topics that give us excuses to talk about more games that we love, but just kind of more conversational as opposed to like, let's talk about this game, then this game, then this game. So anyways, one of the things that John kind of mentioned and that we dug into a little bit when we tried this the first time around was like games with unique or interesting control schemes, or maybe even just favorite control schemes. I don't know exactly what angle you were thinking of that from, John, but like, for me, one of the first games that comes to mind is like when I'm thinking interesting control schemes, I'm like, oh, like Sin and Punishment, or like games that have like funky control schemes on like N64 and stuff like that. Like almost like my first thought was like, oh, games that are like annoying or have like controls you really got to get like used to them. They're like so, one of a kind. But what were you kind of thinking from that angle, John?
Definitely, like one of the reasons was because I was thinking of like Katamari Damacy and just like that very interesting like dual stick like control scheme, and then like also my go-to favorites like Metroid Prime, where that was the game that kind of got me into like FPSs in general, and like
even though there was no legitimate second stick on the GameCube, it's just the C nub,
but it didn't have any camera control in that game, to the best of my knowledge, other than maybe some minor stuff. So it was like you really were kind of like moving, I don't know, almost like in a rigid,
like you could strafe with locking on and use that to be like hypermobile as well,
which felt great. Still,
I thought it felt incredible to play that.
Yeah. Because once my first thought was like leaning into like the Nintendo 64 games and like thinking of stuff like Sin and Punishment, but then like the stuff that really kind of stands out to me is stuff like on the Nintendo DS, like Elite Beat Agents, like is the first game that came to mind. But really just like anything, whether it's Kirby Canvas Curse or Yoshi Touch and Go, which controls very similarly to Kirby Canvas Curse, where you're just kind of like drawing clouds and platforms and whatever for Yoshi or Kirby to walk on and ride around. And like, those are like so one-off, like they're kind of stuck to that system. I mean, I guess you could play them on PC with like a mouse or something like that, but there's still something a little bit different about playing with a stylus. I never even picked up that Kirby and the Rainbow Curse on Wii U.
Same.
Partially because I was like, man, it's going to look so good on my TV. Not that it won't look good on the Wii U gamepad, but like,
correct.
I almost wish they would bring that one to Switch because I would just play it handheld and, presumably it'd be up-resed a little bit and whatever, because I just feel like there's no real way to do that without touch controls. Maybe you could get away with like gyro pointing,
maybe gyro,
like going like Wii remote, style and like pointing and because it worked pretty good even on the Wii for like World of Goo. That's another game actually that comes to mind for like interesting control schemes, because that was like, even picturing playing that on PC doesn't seem as fun because like with a mouse you can just put it exactly where you want. And, click on the exact spot where like it was like on World of Goo. You're like, let me stretch this thing like to the exact spot, like as far as I can get it. Click it there, and like you're kind of trying to balance your hand and stuff.
It felt so good about
that game.
They nailed that. That was one of the first Wii like downloadable WiiWare games. They nailed that.
That was early on, and they really nailed like the physics feel of everything. And I'm usually somebody who doesn't necessarily love physics in games, but when it's more like kind of puzzly and freeform and like I guess more on a 2D grid, that tends to work a little bit better for me just because there's like a little more restriction to what you could do with the physics. But just that way that Goo felt compared with like aiming at the screen, it just felt really good.
Yeah, and then I had remembered Kirby's Air Ride for the GameCube.
Yeah,
like just such a unique racing game. And like I remember at the time it was like I thought it was a little too simplistic when it came out, but then like as I played it later on, I was just like, God, this is really genius how like it's basically a one button racing game where it's just pressing A and then like using that to drift, like how long you held it down on various stars, like would have you charge in different ways or have you like change how you turned in different ways. But like it was such a good straightforward game with then all of like Sakurai's little things is like, all right, now here is a 25 by 25 grid of challenges that will unlock things for you.
But it's a simplified input in gameplay, and you're just maximizing the ideas that come out of that, right?
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like it's kind of like, what was that game from Capcom that, like, I think it was called, like, Asura's Wrath or something like that? Like, it sounds like it's almost like quick time events, like, about, like, just, like, timing your, like, getting the grind just right, or, like, that game Thumper, if anybody's ever played that.
I would say it's kind of
similar to that.
Definitely closer to Thumper, Good comparison on that.
Interesting, because I always pictured it as just being like kind of like an F-Zero, but with Kirby, skin slapped on it, like a real fast-paced racing game. But pictured it to be a traditional control scheme, just steering left and right, and maybe some drifting or whatever. But
yeah, it's pretty much on rails. Like that's the thing. If like you just
literally
like, didn't hold, like I'm pretty sure there are like some tracks that had walls and stuff that like you would get stuck on if you like just left a controller to itself. But for the most part, like it would just go at like your base kart speed or star speed if you didn't do anything. But, you're supposed to be navigating into copy abilities, which will give you either boosts or like let you attack parts of the environment, which would then open up new routes or like different things like that. Really good game. Like, honestly, like no reason that shouldn't be ported or reinvented or something.
Specifically,
like that kind of segues into that other topic that I remember on that you prepared. Like, if you want to go into that,
the one from Randall you're talking about,
I think so.
Yeah. So Randall kind of threw out a topic that we didn't get into. No. Well, you go into this, Randall. Yeah. Sorry.
Hold on. And talk about my control schemes.
Oh, yeah. What are we doing? John's getting ready for that transition, and I'm like, yeah, here we go. Let's smooth. Perfect.
No smooth. So control schemes, where my head goes, there's a couple different angles. The tying into the GameCube of it all is like Super Monkey Ball, like just really simplistic, maximizing, again, a simple input and seeing how far it can go. It's just, here's a really good analog stick that gives you extremely good precision control for the first time. How can we maximize that? And then, that's kind of like spiritual successor to like Marble Madness, where you literally used a trackball in the arcade and like you maximize the control feel that way. Just, moving your little ball character just through, tight corridors, and like how good and satisfying that feels when you do it right and you do it quickly, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like that weightiness in those games that you're mentioning, like Monkey Ball, more so on Marble Madness, but like that momentum that you get from like, just picking up speed, especially in some of like the extra modes in Monkey Ball when you're like just going flying and stuff like that. Like, oh man, I forgot about Monkey Ball. Man, we used to play that so much back in the day.
Yeah, specifically the first two on GameCube, which I think they've remade subsequently. But otherwise, weirdo games, like my head goes to like, what are the weird one-off controllers? Because I love my weird one-off hardware that like goes in line with this. So like the Typing of the Dead on Dreamcast, where literally that's the Dreamcast keyboard to play House of the Dead 2. And it's incredible because you're just typing the words and letters above the zombies' heads.
It's like Mavis Beacon meets House of the Dead.
And it's amazing.
It's literally just the game of House of the Dead.
It's so good. Like, it's so good. And, the only other one, Sin and Punishment, like you said, Kevin, that came to mind, is just like a really like intense, complex, basically the developer saying like, screw you, player, for like, we're not going to make something that's comfortable to you. We're going to make something that maximizes like the game that we're making right here, right? With this control scheme and this controller, But what I ended up thinking of otherwise on N64 was No Mercy, which I've talked about before on the podcast, which one of the few games to use the D-pad on the Nintendo 64, which is notable in its own right, but also use the analog stick because you had to flick it to do your super moves once you got there. So you like, claw reached your thumb across the controller to flick the analog stick to do your super, but otherwise like maximized every button on that controller besides Z for a specific purpose, context sensitive purpose, if you like strong grappled or weak grappled based on how long you held A when you grabbed them, and every button had like multiple context capabilities. Even all the C buttons were used for attack purposes or picking up weapons or leaving the ring or going up on the top rope or whatever it might be, right? And it's all super context sensitive and maximized that controller to like the nth degree.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and when you mentioned like doing like the little like flicking the stick to do the special moves and whatever, kind of reminds me like it's worth giving a shout out to like the Skate series as well for kind of like switching up that skateboarding, because it felt
and
really
Tony
like
Hawk's Pro Skater, like that was also a great control scheme.
It felt really intuitive to just like hit the top button. For me, I always played on PlayStation, so like triangles grind. I mean, maybe you just like circle grab, square for flip tricks. It just felt very natural in that regard. But like
even on a numpad on the PC, it was 2, 4, 8, and 6.
Whoa.
Like,
that same diamond shape on
because I played a little bit on 64, and it was the C buttons, and that worked pretty decently as well.
Plays good on that.
But like I never was like very good at skateboarding by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought they did a really good job of like converting like, oh, this is like the flick motion that you have to do a pop shove it, and this
Skate
is a kickflip,
so
and this
hard
is like,
but so satisfying.
Exactly. Like
amazing.
It actually feels like you're nailing tricks for real, you know, like to a degree. It's really cool. I know that series has gone a little bit off the rails over the years. Like I've heard like the latest one is just like crazy. Like you can just do these like very unrealistic, like huge jumps, and where like the first games, I feel like that was kind of the core concept was like, hey, it's not going to be Tony Hawk where you're like doing backflips off of, grinds and stuff like that. This is going to be a little more grounded, but
you have to angle the board to where you're landing, and your momentum doesn't launch you off it.
I need to play those.
They're so hard.
Awesome.
They're one of the hardest games I've ever played.
They really are. My brother had it and was really into it, and I was like, I can play a couple, like have fun for a little bit, but once you start after like racking up certain scores, I can't remember how the structure of that game worked, but I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah,
but still really
I had
cool
to
control
do
scheme.
a trick on purpose, I was like, nope.
Yeah,
do it.
exactly. That's how it is with me and Ollie Ollie. I was just going to say, because the Ollie Ollie series like kind of took that and ran with it. But it's the same thing when there's a challenge, like do this trick over this gap. I'm like, I'm never going to do that challenge because I just can't, especially when they get a little more challenging than just doing like a kickflip or something.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I got a little bit of a false start there for a second.
Yeah.
But Randall, I know you kind of threw a topic out there for one that we didn't talk about on our previous kind of run through at this. So why don't you take it away on that regard?
Yeah, so there is a natural segue there, which is me just kind of, poking at Activision a little bit, but it's on my list. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 was a thing that came out not all that long ago in the overall scheme of thing, yet they have no plans of bringing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3/4. The engine is right there. You did all the work. You did all the work.
It can even just be like DLC if you want it. If you really wanted it to be.
God, yeah.
Like, come on. What are you doing? It's free money.
Yep, but doesn't that development group don't they not even exist anymore?
I think that's correct. Yes.
What a waste.
Yeah, seriously.
Waste.
Like
the people who did the remake, you mean,
yes.
not the original?
Activision shut it down.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
They did a pretty good job with that game.
They
did an incredible job.
But it takes me back instantly. Like I got it from my brother. I mentioned for Christmas or whatever it was. It's Christmas, and he's like plays it all the time, and he barely plays his Switch. So
yeah, it's incredible. It's so good. No, I've got a lot of other ones, but like some of the ones that top of mind first. I'll save one that I'm sure might get mentioned otherwise. But
did you say what the actual topic was?
I was just gonna say,
sorry. No sequels. Games we wish had sequels, or we'll stick with that, right?
Yeah, games or series that
like
maybe
Kirby's
have
Air
stopped
Ride.
running or exactly.
Yes, that probably would have helped if I would have provided that context to everyone else. Games we wish had sequels. But the other big one for me that I don't know that I've ever really talked about on the podcast is Skies of Arcadia. That's a Dreamcast RPG. And, maybe down the line I'll talk about it a lot more. But it's just like it hit my buttons. Granted, it's another Sega game, so no huge surprise there. But it's one of the rare Sega RPGs. And every time they make one, I tend to love them, I guess. I don't know. It just hits my buttons. And
I kind of forgot that was a Sega game. I always kind of picture it because it has a similar style to the Tales games, especially from that era. So I always kind of like lump those. I just assumed they were made by the same people, but I forgot that was Sega.
Yeah, and I played the Skies of Arcadia Legends version, which was the GameCube port that added a little bit more as far as some of the like side battles and brought down the random battle encounter just a little bit, and so I loved everything about the charm of that game, I guess. I'm not sure how else to describe it, but it hit my buttons.
I mean, it was a JRPG in the 3D realm before it started adding all of JRPG bloat.
Yeah.
So it's more complicated than the Final Fantasy games that were stuck in that the pre-rendered background era of 3D games, but yes. It didn't have all of the complexity of subsystems and submenus that later became the staple of JRPG. That's part of the reasons why I like Tales of Symphonia so much is that it is in that era right before JRPGs just started adding mechanics and needed to be games that you played for hundreds of hours.
200 hours.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Another excellent example that way. Yeah, and and I would say in both of those games, the battle system was more interesting than a lot of traditional JRPGs, because in Skies of Arcadia you had the ship battles, and in Tales of Symphonia you had more real time type of encounters that were happening that way, right? So there's a lot more to it. In really the meat of it, that what you're actually playing in the RPGs and JRPGs of that era, the battle system.
Yeah, and it does seem almost a little more of a, I don't want to use waste as the right word, but it does seem like setting up that big, this big grandiose adventure. Because I remember actually watching you or Milton maybe back in the day play some Skies of Arcadia, or maybe it was Tales of Symphonia actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But either or, it's you're going on this huge grand adventure, and again, for Tales, for example, they've gone on and made how many games in that series or whatever, where it's it just feels like you got all these characters, all this universe you built and created and get people to invest in, because you are playing for a decent amount of time, and if if you're enjoying the game, you're sucked into it. It's it seems like kind of a shame when like games like series like that don't, get their stories continued. But maybe it,
No,
maybe it was a one-off story.
On that exact same note, would be my pet series that I always am dreaming will be revitalized, because it did get one restart several years after like the originals, but the Golden Sun series, like Golden Sun 1 and 2 are like
that's a great pick.
Incredible handheld RPGs, like in the
beautiful games too.
SNES era, like kind of design school, but with like modern sensibilities of like the Game Boy Advance. And then they made the Golden Sun Dark Dawn for the DS, and that was a great game. Like it was so good at like continuing the story of the original Golden Sun games and like making it a good like sequel with the DS controls.
Yeah.
And then they never did anything else with that series ever again. And it's the most depressing thing, because it's such a it's a Camelot and like Nintendo joint, and it's
those games I only played a little bit of them. Yeah, I was going to say I only ever played a little bit, but the polish was like extremely high on those. The graphics, the soundtrack, like they were just gorgeous games.
Yeah, just super love letter to like the 16-bit era, but like in more of that 32-bit style, which I know we all appreciate.
With the pre-rendered like character and enemy models, so they were like they were a better version of that. It's like, like it's pretty much sprite art, but they were like of like 3D generated models, like outside of Game Boy Advance.
It was like kind of like top down, but it was like it kind of like looked top down and isometric at the same time. Like something about the perspective, it just has a little more depth than like a typical top down game, I feel.
Yep.
Man, I was gonna say I need to play those, but realistically, I'm never gonna play an RPG that long. But
you're not gonna like carry over your data, like using a like Metroid original like hex code password that you use to say what your ending equipment and Golden Sun 1 was, so you could carry it over to Golden Sun 2.
Oh my god!
Oh, wow. What an incredible! Is that how that
happened? Jeez.
When Dark Dawn came out, I went back and beat Golden Sun 1 and then beat Golden Sun 2 so that I could like finally do it. And those ending battles for both of those games were some of the most brutal turn-based battles I've ever played.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable.
I remember that reputation those games having at that time too.
Yeah. So good.
It's too bad the DS game, I remember that didn't get quite as good of reviews as the Game Boy Advance games, and I wonder if that sunk it to some degree too. But yeah, like hearing you talk about it.
It was a lot easier.
Well, that's fine.
But I also didn't care because it was a sequel to a game series I loved like a decade later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep waiting for Kevin to mention the RPG that I know he would say here, but he hasn't said it yet.
Well, I'm not. I don't have an RPG jotted down here, so I'm not.
Paper
not
Mario
sure
Thousand Year Door, baby. Come on now.
Oh yeah, we've kind of seen some. We've obviously like the series has continued, but to have something like a little more proper. Like a little more proper. And to be fair, I haven't played the one on Switch or the one on Wii U, but
it's not the same.
And I have enjoyed some of the other, like the Sticker Star, I thought was decent, even though I never finished it.
Because you didn't get to. Mario. I remember this conversation.
It started getting tedious,
when it just falls apart completely and
these
ruins
games don't
count for itself.
That's the conceit of this conversation.
To me, they still count in my mind.
Okay, play it some more.
The games that I was thinking of, and actually to keep on like that DS train, like and actually kind of on that train of like series that have gone off the rails a little bit for me, like WarioWare. I feel like WarioWare Touched is like probably the last favorite WarioWare game of mine. Just again, those touchscreen controls, it's so intuitive. It's just like they can just show some crazy shit on the screen and you just kind of know what to do. Once you get what the game's doing and they're just going to show a cucumber on the screen and you just have to intuit that, hey, I got to slice this thing up into like as many slices as I can, as fast as I can without thinking about it. Like once you get it, you just kind of get it and you're rolling with it. Whereas like WarioWare on the Wii, Smooth Moves, as much as it had that same energy, it was like it's got to teach you like the way to hold the remote each time. And if you're playing with someone for, with friends and just showing them the ropes, you got to show them how to use it. It just kind of,
it was cute, but it
went
lost
off
a little bit of magic. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they've done like the WarioWare DIY, which I actually never picked up myself, and a really cool concept. Like they've done a bunch of cool stuff with WarioWare since, and I bought the one on Switch. I was a little bit disappointed in that.
WarioWare Gold on 3DS was good, but that was just like a best of compilation, to be fair.
Yeah, I never picked that one up. Yeah, I actually kind of forgot about that. But then they also had that like Wario Game and Watch, or Wario and Watch, or whatever.
Game
Not
and
Game
Wario.
and Watch, but Game and Wario, yeah. And I got that like through the Club Nintendo points or something. But I don't think I ever played it other than like just to check out the mini games for a quick second. But like WarioWare, and actually Wario Land, because I still think back about Wario Land Shake It on the Wii.
Yeah.
How good that looked, but that it wasn't even in widescreen, and it was just like, why is this game in 4:3? What the hell, man? It's so crisp, these perfect animations.
I still had a 4:3 tube TV by the time
That's true. That's true. In that Wii area.
That was in perfect definition.
It probably looked incredible on that TV too.
Oh yeah,
and it looked incredible even on an HD.
Yeah.
That game looks so crisp. Just those like cartoon animations. Yeah, and it really makes me think like, oh man, what they could do with that series now. And I don't know. I just feel like there's a ton of potential. But another game too that just came to mind right off the bat. At first I was thinking like Cave Story, but like we got Carol Blaster. It's not technically a follow up, and there's just all those complications with Cave Story being like tied up with Nicalis. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I didn't want to be like negative about it. But I was like, oh man, I love that being in that world, and that game is kind of short and sweet.
Agreed.
But Wave Race is the game that came to mind. Like F-Zero too, to a degree, I'd love to see come back. But Wave Race, Blue Storm wasn't even bad.
I thought about this too.
But like everything's like feels a little weighty. But there was just, when I was thinking between F-Zero and Wave Race, I was just like, I just miss like going off those jumps and diving underwater and like the magic of like the dolphin or the orca like coming up beside you.
You could ride the dolphin if you put the right code in, and the control scheme was goddamn perfect. The wave. Oh yeah,
speaking of control schemes, yeah. The like inverted, like up and down, like it just felt like, oh, this is, of course I want to pull down forward to go underwater, like forward and back to do a backflip, like the barrel rolls. Yeah, that game was sweet, and it would just like, I don't know, it just seems like a no-brainer. How cool would that be on Switch with man, those like sunset levels where like the water's all orange and stuff. I just like, that game is baked into my brain.
I played so much Wave Race 64, and I got Blue Storm at launch for GameCube over a lot of other games, and I was just like, okay. It's just like, it just didn't recapture the magic.
Yeah, and me being a little softer on Wave Race Blue Storm, me being like, oh, it's not half bad. That I did buy it like years and years later when it was like $5 or $10. So it's like, okay, it's not bad for that. But I probably, if I would have shelled out 50 or 60, though, I probably would have been a little bit more like, oh man, this is the only one of two games I have on my GameCube.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, that was kind of the game that really came to mind. Just like, oh man, we need another Wave Race, or really just another. As much as I love Mario Kart and have been I actually did the best. I still came in last out of all my friends, but I was like, okay, I won some more races than usual. I just felt a little more in control. But like, as much as I love Mario Kart 8 and just Mario Kart in general, I really would like to see another racing game from Nintendo again, or Kirby's Air Ride. I don't care, just give me another Nintendo racing game.
Absolutely, yeah. I could keep rattling off one. I want Typing of the Dead 2 that came out apparently in Japan in the arcade. It didn't come out here. I could take another one of those. Pokemon Puzzle League 2. Come on. Panel de Pon, a phenomenal puzzle game.
Yeah,
you have it in your hand.
Meteos.
Meteos. God. All of these properties, amazing puzzle. Tetris is great, but it's not the only thing that exists. Come on, folks. Like it's right there for the picking. Like, come on. Panzer Dragoon Saga 2. I know that's a lot to ask, but if we're going to talk about RPG sequels,
hey man, we got Shenmue 3. We got Shenmue 3 at some point. We got Duke Nukem Forever eventually. It's like some of these games eventually happen. Supposedly, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is still in the works somewhere.
Oh boy, that's been a good decade.
Yeah. I mean, we got Half-Life Alyx. Like,
yeah. It's like this stuff kind of comes around, especially now that everyone's trying to cash in on that nostalgia. They're like digging through their back catalog, like, what IP could we bring back here?
Yeah,
what do people have fondness for?
Yeah, we finally got a Pokemon Snap sequel, stuff like that. So yeah. So hey,
that's true. What about you, John?
I think I said a lot of them. Like, I'm trying to think if there's any others that like. I think I touched on most of them. I'm sure, like, as soon as we finish recording, I'm gonna be like, but
Yeah,
what
there's,
about
like-
this game?
Yeah, I was actually.
I mean, I'm
forgetting
getting
you mentioned,
Fantasy
Golden
Life
Sun and stuff,
sequels,
and-
so yeah.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
got
It's like we're getting a
everything I
lot of
could
these. We're getting a lot of the
possibly
ones we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has
and
been.
even
It's
getting
been
like
good lately.
remakes or like these reimaginings from like in whether it's Wild Guns. Or
Yeah.
like, I wouldn't have necessarily thought like I need another Pocky and Rocky game, but like, hey, we got one.
Yeah,
I'll
I
take
know.
them all day long.
The last
I'll
5
take 'em
years
all
have
day
been really
long.
good that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess so the other topic that we had too was like multiplayer games or modes in single player games. So I'll let you kind of take the lead with this one, John, because number one, you've introduced me to a ton of these modes in games, like whether it's on like 64 stuff we've done on like the Switch Online or whatever.
64.
But yeah,
Good.
I feel like there's been a ton because I don't have much. Like when I was thinking about this, I was like, man, I really can only think of like playing the shit out of the Uncharted 3 multiplayer like online mode,
Sure.
which is just like, pretty strictly. And honestly, the only reason I looked this up because I was like, what games? I like actually just Googled like multiplayer modes and single player games, and it was all like online style multiplayer stuff, which is
Right.
not necessarily what I was trying to look for. But I was like, I did really love like because it was like kind of like a dumbed down version of like stuff like Overwatch or whatever. There's just like more simplified because it was just it was just like kind of basic, but it was like. I don't know, the balance, the level design was good. I had a lot of fun with that. I do have some other thoughts, but I'll kick it to you on this topic to get us kind of rolling here.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've mentioned before like Kirby 64, like checkerboard chase, and that has even gotten the whole like full game remake and drag and drop that which is just a great idea. Like, yeah, keep making these full game versions of these good concepts. Like,
Yes.
Yeah,
we
let's just add some power ups and throw some twists into the mix. Yeah.
Yeah, we did the Pokemon Stadium, all three of us recently. And like I'm looking forward to doing that again when Pokemon Stadium 2 comes out and how
Hell
that
yeah.
multiplayer mode is
Let's
even
do it.
better.
Yeah.
The every Star Fox game that I've played,
Yes.
like Star Fox Assault, we would do a lot of like
Me and my brother
stunt
used to play
modes.
that too.
And that was my group of friends would do that more with like Super Smash Brothers Brawl at the time, where we just make the most bizarre custom rules, and everybody does this with like Halo, where you're like, okay, needlers only, or like GoldenEye slappers only.
Yeah.
Yep.
But like
Proximity mines. Yeah.
yeah, we like Star Fox Assault was such a weird game in that respect. Like, it still wasn't like you guys played the Star Fox 64 multiplayer with us.
Yep.
Like, we all did that recently.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot of pop up in that game.
Oh,
Where,
yeah.
like it's all of a sudden like things just are showing up. Like, they'd never fix that with Star Fox Assault. You're still playing in a GameCube game, but like. With you could get into a Landmaster and an R-Wing at will, and then also jump out and do a weird control scheme with the GameCube and somehow.
Yeah, I could never get used to playing on foot in that game. Everything else felt great, and I was just like, and even the on foot sections like seemed cool, but I just like it never clicked in my brain.
Same,
like
at least
playing.
at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure if I dedicated enough time to it, I could get at least better at it and enjoy it a little more. But yeah, I just didn't have the patience. Yeah. Because for me, like some of the stuff that I thought of, like I'm more like I was kind of thinking of like puzzle games, like more like the times with like I've talked about on the podcast with like Bleep Bloop when we were at your place, John, like playing like a single player game, like and just turning it into a co-op experience, whether it be like everyone playing a puzzle game and like just shouting out solutions to try out or something like that. But even like when like DJ and I have just like hot seated games and just like pass the controller back and forth. Like, hey, let's play through all the Mega Man games and like either just trade off every time we die or every time. It depends on the game. Like some games are like, okay, if we're maybe trying to beat Super Meat Boy or something, like, okay, we're not going to pass it off every time we die. Maybe we'll do it every time we beat a level or something, or a few levels if they're like real quick or something. But just like kind of taking turns, like we did the same thing with the Mario games. Every time we collect a star in Mario 64, pass it back and forth. Like it's just like turning a game that's not meant to be co-op into one, especially if it's one that you're already comfortable and familiar with. And then I also do love when games like the two that come to mind right off the bat were like Box Boy and Box Girl and Piku Niku, like games that have like a totally bespoke co-op campaign where it's like there's like a single player camp or a Portal 2 or something, like games that like have like, there is this mode that is like strictly designed for 2 people to play together.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
I know that's obviously like a little bit of a different, like a veering off of the topic, but I was just like, I really appreciate when games, although I sometimes get like with Piku Niku, I got a little bit bummed because I was like, I don't have anybody to play with, play this co-op campaign with right now. It didn't have online or anything. So yeah, I remember Glenn and Becky were playing that together at the same time, and like that I was playing it, and her and I were talking about it, and she kept like telling me about all these puzzles, and I was trying to help her at first, and I was like, wait, are you playing the co-op campaign? This doesn't sound familiar to me at all. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of love that, but I couldn't really think of any like modes in like, you know, like party. I was trying to think of like party, you know, games and stuff like that, but all that really was popping into mind was like multiplayer stuff.
I mean, even when we did our like pass the controller around playing Hitman but making it into its own game where it's like, okay, you beat this level and then the next person can't do any of the things you did to beat that level. And like,
that's good.
Especially with Hitman, like it just being a giant sandbox where there's so many ways to solve every problem. Like it just becomes a really fun situation where you're like, all right, I've got a really bad idea and I'm going to try to take this bad idea to its fullest extent.
Yeah. Or like almost like gaming the system, like, okay, I'm going to take this easy path so that the next person can't go this way anymore. Like I'm going to totally screw this like obvious way. Now everybody's got to find a secret way in, or you know, just totally break the game a little bit.
That's super.
Or you're
compelling.
just John, where you just punch a guy, take his clothes, and hide for an hour.
There you go. Victory's a
Gotta
victory.
have the patience.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mine, I came at it a little bit of a different way. I mean, we talked a little bit about a stunt mode in a different game. Obviously, Wave Race 64 does have a multiplayer mode, but you know, for me, that was mostly a single player game, and the multiplayer that we played the most was the stunt mode, and just like taking turns, who gets the highest score, putting together tricks a la like a Tony Hawk, basically, but in Wave Race, you know?
Yeah.
We're going to bring up Wave Race 64 as often as we can, apparently, on this episode.
Yeah.
Other examples were like, in Sonic 2, playing as Tails was really cool, especially if you had like a younger sibling or cousin or whoever else that's you know you could be Sonic and take all the real hits, but Tails could also play if you just plug in the second controller, take control of Tails, and if they get hurt or get off the screen because you're going too fast, it's like no harm, no foul. They'll like reappear, they'll fly in the air and be dropped right next to you again. So I love the accessibility and stuff like that. And, now with, a younger daughter, I'm, thinking more about those type of experiences with that, or like even like Mario Galaxy, a second player can, pick up the star gems or whatever, those sort of things. Right. So those are really cool.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's easy to kind of write those off as like, oh, this is like a little tacked on mode. But then when you're looking at it through the perspective of like, oh, I have a 3-year-old nephew to play this game with. Like, oh, you're like, oh, this is a sweet feature. Like he can actually like engage with the game a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. Feel part of the experience. So, I definitely really appreciate that even more than I did then. And I thought it was cool then. And even then with Tails, it was beyond just that. It gave you gameplay enhancement of, if someone was Tails, they could fly, pick you up, and put you on top of an area that Sonic couldn't naturally just jump to. So, even from that perspective, it added a little bit gameplay-wise. But the other thing that came to mind was playing games like Until Dawn or the Telltale games, where like choose your own adventure. Here's these story beats, playing those while someone else is like, like my wife is, Tina's watching me play or something, and like, hey, what do we do? Do we want to axe this guy, throw him to the zombies, or do we want to bring him along? Like all these sort of like little moments that keep coming up, right? And Until Dawn is like the ultimate like horror choose your own adventure with this like group of just like an 80s horror teen movie type of thing, but made into a game. And those collaborative choose your own adventure style experiences are really fun that way, just sitting, one person's got the controller but everyone's participating sort of experiences.
Because that's how I played through a lot of like early games in like Lauren and my relationship, where like I was playing Portal and like she was watching it, or like
same.
I was doing like I played Thomas Was Alone with her, and like the Stanley Parable, where like that was more of just like, us like kind of like playing together, not really knowing what to do, or like her doing like the couch co-op of like saying like, why don't you try doing this, or like X, Y, and Z, and like even though like I'm the only one like with the controller, like we're still both playing the game, and it's a nice collaborative thing.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that experience. Even if I'm the one not with the controller.
Same.
Like I kind of like that more sometimes, depending on the game. It just helps you solve some puzzles, and
you can zoom out much more, right? Like you're not having to control it, so you can just get the full picture of things and like, oh, I see. Maybe this plus this is like, yeah. Well, the other game to actually give one an actual, I guess, in my head, I was thinking of this game as a multiplayer game, but just to give some more love to Monkey Ball. Like I used to play so much of like the multiplayer, like Monkey Target and stuff like that. That was the mode for whatever reason we played the most of, just like trying to hover and get, just like, I don't know. It was like so competitive. We were all pretty evenly matched in that game. When can you clasp
my group
the
of
ball?
Friends.
When's the time to go back into the ball and not fall into the water, but land on the target and hit the bullseye?
Yep.
Yeah. Just so much fun.
Or all the modes of Kirby's Air Ride.
Yeah.
We're gonna like
hit
the gong for all of our favorite niche racing games. But Kirby's Air Ride, like City Escape, it was such a good mode.
Yeah.
Like, it was so weird because like it was basically just there would be a random mini game at the end, and you were just collecting stats like for your that like were little items spread around, and there would be like random events that would happen in this sandbox, and like as the like timer would go down, it would give hints on like what the type of mini game that the competition would be at the end. Yeah. So like if you had like spent your entire time like building a cart around like top speed, and then it's like, oh, actually like this is all going to be about precision or strength at the end, then you're like, ah shit, I need to like either abandon this star and find a stronger one, or one like more geared towards that, or just only get that type of power up now. Yeah. And like it was really inventive and such a weird multiplayer mode that in a game that was mostly just racing.
Yeah, it's so cute. Where's our GameCube virtual console GameCube experience on Switch? Come on now. Like we could be doing these sort of things.
Yeah. And even again, like just knowing how good like Wind Waker looked, just up-res. I know that game was a little more stylized than some of these other ones, but still, I think Kirby's Air Ride, just give it a little up-res and it would look great.
Easy
actually,
money.
A game, the menus and stuff didn't look great, but actually on Xbox Game Pass or on Games with Gold, whatever, one of the downloads was Pod Racer Episode 1.
Oh, I've been
Pod
playing
Racer.
that. Yeah, I've been playing that.
Yeah, I fired it up. Number one, the laps are so fucking long. I was like, how did they fit this all on a 64 cartridge?
It plays well,
but anyways,
though.
I was like, it plays great. But and it looks pretty good. Like they didn't do much. It looks like they just kind of gave it the Banjo-Kazooie treatment. Like widescreened it up, sharpened everything. Yep. But it's still the 64 assets, it looks like. It's not like, oh, they redid everything. Yeah. And it looks great, and the sense of speed is awesome. I was getting pumped. I was like, this game is still pretty good. It still holds up. And that's what kind of made me think like, oh man, F-Zero needs to come back.
Yeah. Hey, GX was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were good at it, which I never was.
Fair enough. Same, to be honest with you. One of my buddies was, but he had to, like, that was his job, was to play that game alone in order to be successful at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention too with the sequels, back to that topic, is like, because the first thing I was thinking about is like, I was thinking like, what are the games I like love the most? Like I was thinking of more recent stuff like Sayonara Wild Hearts or A Short Hike. Or games like that. But then I was kind of like, but those are like such singular, one of a kind. Like I wouldn't want to play a Short Hike. It's like, that's just kind of one of a kind. I'd love to play the next game from that developer, whatever it is, whether it's something similar, something different. But like, I wouldn't want it necessarily to be a sequel to that game or Sayonara Wild Hearts, even though I'd eat
Second
it up
album,
if it existed.
Baby. Come on, now.
But like, I'd eat it up for sure. But like, part of me is like, they're so singular. Like, I almost like, a sequel can sometimes ruin the magic a little bit.
Second album, different genre, different aesthetic.
There you go.
Now that would be awesome. Yeah, I'd be all about it if they just kind of shifted gears.
Like it wasn't neon, it wasn't like polygon. Like think about if it was more like the Beautiful Joe cell shaded with like a more ink heavy.
Speaking of games that could come back.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, we literally could just sit here and like rattle off series like Electroplankton. I was like thinking of some of the DS games earlier. Yeah, definitely dangerous territory for sure.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know, any other multiplayer stuff or just any other stuff we want to riff on before we wrap up a little anniversary action? Or
I'm feeling good. I feel like we've discussed a good amount.
Star Fox 64 too. I understand that Assault came out, but I want Star Fox 64 too, or just another rail shooter of some kind. Another major rail shooter, please. Just something. I don't know.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, so another rail shooter would be cool.
Yeah,
because Rez is probably the closest thing we've, and like the Panzer Dragoon remakes in recent years.
Yeah,
so
let's
get that Zwei remake.
We keep saying like, oh, we need another on rails thing, and like I have Neon White in my library. I know it's not exactly the same.
I was gonna say that one's like a little more unique, right? It's like a deck builder or something too, right?
Yeah, it's like I'll have to play it and come back.
You'll definitely have to let me know, because I really want to play that game. I forget who the developer is, but it's somebody who their previous game was also really good. I forget what they made before that, but
or we just need to play Star Fox Zero, like we.
I know we keep saying that, but I also don't want to.
Yeah, maybe we'll just keep holding out hope for Star Fox
Morbid
to make a comeback.
curiosity.
If the Switch can hang on, long enough, they gotta put a Star Fox game out there eventually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
they gotta put Metroid Prime 4 out there. All right.
I was gonna say that as a joke. I was gonna say that. I was like, the sequel we need is a sequel to Metroid Prime 3. Oh, too funny, but it'll be here eventually. I think. But yeah, I think we could wrap it up there for 4 years of podcasting, which is crazy. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll be back as always with some more video game action next week. And as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com and everywhere else pretty much. And otherwise, we'll catch you next week. And until then, take care.
Bye.
Bye. Let me run. I can do this in 5 seconds. Give me
Take
5.
your time. Take your time.
No, I'm gonna take 5 seconds.
Nice. Beauteous. I might not even have to jot down a new time here because I was rounding up.
Nice.
On the start time here. Yeah, I brought it back up. I got my koozie here. Oh, damn, that was super fast.
Maybe
Randall doesn't lie. He said 5 seconds.
Fast.
Maybe like 9
he delivered.
Seconds. There's this black shit getting all over the floor from these headphones. I'm still wearing them. God damn, they're disintegrating.
Oh yeah, mine.
The inner cups.
Fucking whatever.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Those are done.
Dunzo.
Yeah. Dunzo Corleone.